All right, and it looks like we're rolling with some funk royalty of beautiful Cincinnati, Ohio, the one and only Mike Cobb. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me. We talked about doing this, and I'm glad you called.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, right on.
Well, the greatest thing for me about this show is getting a reason for us to sit down and me to be able to ask you some questions about whether it's your musical history or the way you approach it. Or I think for someone that has such an incredible career, finding yourself where you are now, still as enthusiastic about the music. Looking around, like you had said some things to me after a show recently that made me feel like I was at least going the right direction and feeling very inspired by it. Because there's something between having a musician watch you that you can tell that they are looking at the minutia, the nuance of what's going on you're playing, and if it's honest and it's real, then we can both enjoy it. If you are phoning it in on a Thursday, boy, can we feel it. Thing.
Right.
So let's just start at the beginning. Was bass your first instrument?
I'll tell you what, man. And I've told this story a bunch, and I never get tired of telling it. I had a cousin of mine, his mom and my and the bass. So my aunt used to watch me, and I'd watch him play the bass. Then he would go to work. And when he would go to work, I'd go upstairs and I'd play his record, one of the old school that he had, just full of. One day he caught me, and he was like, "No, you can't touch."
How long had this been going on before he caught you?
It was a little bit.
Okay, cool.
And he never came back. Like after he would go to work, he wouldn't come back. I knew when he was coming back, but he snuck back in, came back into work. I busted. He said, "No, you don't play this one, but if you want to play, you play this one." And he handed me this old precision bass that had 2 strings on it. It had the E and the A. And I'm like, okay. So I started playing that one with the E and the A string. And one of the songs that really caught my attention that he played, it was "Ah the Name" by Bobby Collins. And he showed me the album, and I'm like, that's what I want to be when I get older. You know, just something about the feel of that bass sound. Then he'd play Parliament, Funkadelic, old school stuff.
Yeah. And
I listened to it. But it was Nation Under Groove that I heard, which I could kind of strum along with the E and the A string. And I'm like, you know what? So I called. I was in the third grade, like 7.5, 8 years old, whatever.
What year are you first getting into?
Good Lord. I was. See, then I'm going to have to tell my age if I tell you the year.
It's okay. I just want to know how recent is this P-Funk stuff coming out?
Oh,
is
dude,
this like
is 70s, early 70s.
Okay, so these aren't records on a shelf. This is pretty cutting.
Yeah, this was 78 maybe, 78, 79, 77. There, I'm listening to this stuff. And I called my friend over. I'm like, I can play the bass. And I'm playing. If you know the doom, 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 better doom, doom. And I'm playing it with the E and the A. Doom, 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 doom. They looked at me. I was like, that's not how the song goes. And I'm like, we get it. It's like, no, you sorry. You can't play it. And I'm like, okay, well, one of these days you all are going to have to pay. One of these days. And that's started. That was my motivation right there.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So, did you ever go for after that? Did you covet or after kind of having that experience?
When I first started looking at real basses, you know, as opposed to the 2 that I had, which I still wish that I had because it would be worth $1 billion.
Yeah.
Like a 60-something precision bass. I played around with it, but I couldn't get the sound that I wanted. And I had to what they were playing, which is So that and it took me a while to find this one. One of my only bass regrets is I traded my Lakeland. I had a Skyline Authentic. It wasn't the knockoff 5-string first. I traded it in for the bass, but I probably shouldn't have done that.
The hardest thing about instruments is like you don't realize how much personality is in them till you're with that, and you realize that friend. You can't call him at this point. You know?
So that was it.
There's something so interesting to me about Rick's though, where it's like you listen to Rick James play it, you listen to Paul McCartney play it, and there's this great that's like for a bass play a melody throughout the song, kind of let the drums handle most of that. nothing like a Rickenbacker.
Right. Love the sound.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
A guy that like so from a 2 bass, are you thumbing this off or
No, I'm first playing with my fingers. And here's the funny thing. I shouldn't have left this out, but it just shows you how determined I was. I had 2 strings on it. I had one of those strings. So I had left. And I broke that string. And then I took shoestrings out of my shoes and I put them on my bass. And my dad looked down at my shoes. He was like, "Where are your shoestrings?" Like, And I showed him the bass and he was like, "You want to play that bad?" So the trade-off was I had to join orchestra in school and get some sort of formal training to get a bass. If I quit, then he'd take my bass. So, and he was serious about it.
Yeah. And when he went to orchestra, were you playing upright or what
Yeah.
do you?
I started off on a cello because I was 4th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I learned how to play that. I would take it and turn it sideways, like playing a bass. And that kind of got me started. And he was like, "You really want a bass?"
Yeah.
So you got to stay in it for a year, and I stayed in. Alberta Schneider was my teacher at Wyoming Middle School, and she convinced my dad, like, "You have to keep him in here. He's talented." So that's first base.
It's incredible, man.
Yeah.
Did upright open you up to a whole new lane of music, or was it just kind of like this is a passing phase? I'll do it if it's going to get me back to electric bass.
I'll tell you what. I really grew passionate about playing classical music, and a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think, "Oh, he just picked it up all R&B." But I love playing classical music. I played all throughout high school. I was first chair
Yeah.
in the high school orchestra, and I loved it.
And was that a lot of bow work?
Mhm.
One inch like that. What I love about guys that can do upright and play electric is there's so many different ways to shape your tone.
Right.
Bring the variety in there. It's the guys that even if you're just on electric bass, you still have that mental access to how is this going to carry your love for sustain, your love for dynamic and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's so enhanced by that.
Yeah.
Like McBride. I never saw someone play an upright like that. That sounded like they should be on electric, but no, they made the conscious choice to be on here today.
Right.
And I love that, man.
Yeah.
So do you still have an upright that you occasionally go to?
I have an upright, and actually the bridge popped off of it, so I never fixed.
Okay.
It was kind of expensive.
It's-
But my secret for my tone with playing the upright was, gosh, I used so much rosin on my bow. So much. And my teacher used to look at me because I'm going to ruin the finish on that bass with all that rosin. But it just had that grit to it. And
Yeah.
I just love the gritty sound of that.
And when you talk about the grit of when you add rosin,
Right.
that's gonna go.
Mhm.
And was that like inspired by electric bass players? You like that grit and you like that punch, or sonically it felt more right for you?
It felt right, but you know what? Now that you ask me that, going back to the comparison between the Rick and the jazz bass sound that I liked, it was that growl.
Yeah.
And I love the way that sounded.
Yeah.
He's sliding up and back. And I think that's how my upright bass sounded when I played it. It had a growl to it.
That's
You know, it was
badass.
mean.
Yeah.
You know, I'm playing mean orchestra. You know, Brandon. Dun, 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 doom, doom. And it had a little growl to it.
Yeah.
It had some balls to it. And the other guys, it was all soft. I'm like, I didn't like that. So,
Well, and I love like I love when you listen to like music technology progressing through your favorite records. You can
Yeah.
feel when certain breakthroughs happen. And one of the things that struck me about like a Sly Stone kind of bass sound is how inappropriately mixed that bass is. Thinking about that time period,
Right.
no one else would do that. The way that he has collapsed this preamp is just the ballsiest, realest thing. It's like you can play it on a phone speaker, and it is just so in your face. It's like, no, it's gonna shake your thigh if it's in
Right.
your pocket. It's real.
Yep.
And when folks break rules, you find yourself out doing the thing rather than just complying.
Exactly.
Like to learn music then on the sheet, on the upright, and then have that translate to your electric playing.
So I had a conversation with a singer, and I've talked to a lot of young musicians about it. There are a lot of people who are real theoretically trained. My theoretical training did not translate to my. So what I did on the upright was totally different than what I did on the bass. And what I was taught on the upright, it gave people the opportunity to listen to what I was playing. The music that's so heavily in the day, in this day, when I learned that, it gives people the opportunity to feel what I'm playing. You can hear my notes, but you can't really feel them when I'm playing Hungarian Dance #7. You hear them when I'm playing. When I'm sliding up and down playing a P-Funk song, when I'm playing a Bootsy Collins song, or if I'm emulating on the bass, playing 7/7 93/11, you're not listening. You're gonna feel it.
Yeah.
So that's funny you bring that up. I just had that conversation yesterday.
Well, I think for some folks, the moment that you primary instrument, the moment you start to work on your music
Right.
overall, it's like, boy, did I not appreciate 99% of what I love about music till I started looking at it through the lens of the computer.
Right.
It's production work, and suddenly these things that I thought were negligible are the only things that matter. Your way of leaving out tones and whatnot. So someone will fill that void more appropriately, whether it's your sections, like especially talk about Prince. It's like no one plays a more unconventional bass than Prince, whether it's leaving it out on Kiss or all the times that, like what's the album he does for Batman? Is it just Man?
Yeah.
Everything in that album is so like inappropriate bass, but just perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah, and you watch the studio just cross-legged and enjoying the hell out of every second of it, man.
I remember we were on the road and we did some shows with The Time. And Morris Day, I don't know what the guy's name is, New Jerome, and they were sitting down at the bar in the hotel, and I was talking to him about some of the songs that they had done, and I was trying to get some of his seat. And they called it greasy bass. You know, he played that real greasy, funky, just slide up and and I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. It's greasy.
Yeah,
it is, and you can't notate that. A lot of stuff I did with Bootsy, it's we did a show with youth, something like that. The first time that I heard P music notated, and I'm listening to them play it, and I'm like, so that's how that sounds if you write it down.
Yeah.
And you couldn't feel it. You could hear it. And it was just like, I'm listening to these kids like, okay. But that greasy bass, it's not theoretically correct. There's nothing theory behind it, but it sure sounds good, and it makes you feel.
Yeah. And did certain steps of understanding that happen gradually in being in the band? Or was it right when you entered, there has to be a sit-down conversation about this, it's that? Okay.
Because that's how I played. And I played like that because that's who I wanted.
Yeah.
So that's everything that I did came from the slide and just that feel. That's just, when I heard it the first time, that's what I gravitated toward.
Yeah.
I didn't gravitate. And a lot of players, they gravitate towards the greats, Jocko, and, you know, I can't play Spain. I can't play town. I can figure it out. Not where I went. I went to sounding funky, slippery slide and bass lines. So when I said that, that's how I got my job with Bootsy. It was about the feel. Like, you sound like an old me. That's how I played. And I'm like, well, of course, because I stole all your stuff. You know, so other guys in the band that didn't understand the feel. We had a drum and we couldn't quite understand. He couldn't quite understand that. I had to learn. So I have seen it taught. But it's something you just, it's hard to something like that.
Well, it's hard to articulate too, unless you want to sit down and listen to the why of that. But let me back this up a little bit. When you're listening to records by ear, and you're also listening to how you study records. I mean, are you the type of student where you listen, you think, and you play, or are you playing along with these records at all points in time?
The good thing that I know that I got from the theoretical is discipline. How to count, knowing bars, knowing sections of songs. I don't really go really deep into a lot of scales, and this is something that I told a guitar player the other day. I can tell you the majors and the minors, and I can hear everything else. I know what it is when I hear it. But see the notes. In my head, I can see the fingerings, and a lot of that does come from the formal training.
Mm.
So, able to take that and combine it with what I hear, I can take it and translate it into what I feel.
That I think is the golden lesson for young players.
Yeah.
And as someone like I took formal lessons that were mainly tablature based, and I wish I would have been more adamant about the things that were going on there, because when someone can explain to you the rhyme and reason of why something might happen, it's pick out when someone's breaking a rule intentionally and how that's going to play.
Right.
And to be able to listen and say, no, I can see it be more efficient to play this in fifth position rather than first position, and those little things.
Right.
So you're listening to these records. When's the first time that you identified a slap and how you wanted to approach that?
Oh boy. That would probably, not to sound cliche, it was probably Thank You by the Family Stone. Like, what is he here? How is that going? And I think my cousin might have showed me
Nice.
what he was doing. Showed me about Larry Graham. And I started playing some Larry Graham songs. And I think when I first heard The Jam by Graham Central Station, which to me is the funkiest of the funkiest songs ever created. The Jam. That's just, it has everything about funk music. P-Funk stuff is on a different level than funk music. That's P-Funk.
Yeah.
But when it comes to funk music, when I first heard it, I'm like, what is this guy doing? And then I started to Larry Graham and started listening and watching what he was doing and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so you're a kid that's growing up, and you don't have direct access to a lot of the video of this necessarily.
Right.
But did you kind of hone in on Larry as a player and start to try to listen back to his career to get that down? Or did you kind of define it on your own of how you wanted to slap?
I kind of defined it on my own. My cousin, again, he was the guy that I see what he was doing. I grew up in a household where there was always music playing. My mom, she would get off work on Friday. First thing she would do, she'd cash her check, she'd go to the record store. All the latest albums. So Saturday morning, cleaning, and whatever I would hear is what I would listen to. And I'm listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire, and the Sly and the Family Stone, listening to War. My dad was a big OJ's guy, listening to the OJ's. She played Luther Vandross with Marcus Miller on the bass. And that was just always something. She's a big disco. So she played a lot of Donna songs. And I'm listening to that, and I'm kind of getting a little bit away from pop. But hearing what was going on gave me an opportunity I liked. Like what's going on in this song, what's going on with this song, I like what's going on with this song. And my technique is don't do as I do as I say. Because if you look at it, like I'm all over the place. But it's from the influences that I have. When I'm slapping and popping, I'm not just in a regular pattern. I'm kind of soloing and grooving and holding at the same time. It's a whole bunch of all at once.
Yeah.
Makes that style. So that's kind of how I developed my slapping and popping style.
And I feel like there's a very different approach to slapping and popping and making that feel right with drummers and whatnot. But as Larry had pointed out, he's like, you have your kick and your snare. That's why we're here right now. And so when you initially got that down, did you spend more time jamming just by yourself, no music associated? Or?
Yep. I probably have played more by myself, phones on, or just me and the amp. That's how I developed my style. And it's, you can learn a lot emulating other people, but I never wanted to, to be somebody so bad to where, like, this is all I'm going to learn. There was the Bootsy Collins influence. There was the Prince influence. There was a Larry influence. And there's all these other great that I like. And I had to figure out a way to, you can't do that. You can't take it all and put it all together if you're listening to them one at a time. You listen to it, and then you just play.
Yeah.
And I'm huge about playing what I feel, because There are a lot of people who, and this is no smack in the face towards who can't play by ear, but if you play by the notes, playing what somebody else felt. And as a musician, it's a form of artistic expression. To be able to express my do that if I'm always playing what somebody else played. And I think going back to and this is no smack in the face towards everybody who gives a lot of credit. I always pay homage to the bass grades. So there's no smack in the face for people who know the standards. It was never really a goal of mine to learn to play what's already been done. It was always a goal of mine to learn to play what I felt.
Yeah.
You know, and express myself.
That is actually where culture revolves around, play along covers on YouTube, just going with tracks and whatnot. And
Right.
with so much original music coming out every single day, it's hard. You're getting noticed by others, and you get that affirmation as to what you're doing. But in the songwriting community that's me, and that I try to be an adamant part of, I tell people, if you want to pay homage to your heroes, reciprocate what they did with their time.
Absolutely.
They put songs on the ether, and they said this finds its way into the soundtrack of life. We're better for it.
Right.
Prince would be disgusted if he found out I'm trying to make my living off of playing Prince.
Right.
That my heroes would want me to take what they've done, digest, and regurgitate what I want to feel of it.
Right.
So when did this turn into, all right, you're playing classical music, you're learning some songs, when are you just writing for yourself?
Remember, I'd always lyrically, but when it came to bass lines, I was afraid. And a good friend of mine, some recording equipment, and I started playing. People would hear me playing in the bass. You're like a guitar, and I'm like, I never tried really. Somebody would bring a guitar down, I'd play and record with guitar, keyboard. I'm like, I can hear some, but I've learned over the years to play on instruments. Now, granted, I don't master any of this. I'm not gonna make it seem like all that when it comes to this that I hear. A freshman in college is when I started writing and recording my own stuff.
Yeah.
And it was cheesy, the 80s, so it was a lot of electronic drum machines and, kind of cheesy. But that's when I first realized. Yeah, and I've written cool bass lines. One of the I played with my first original around here, worldwide. I would deliberately, I try to bass lines for the songs that nobody else could play, so they couldn't fire. And there was a few of them you could figure out, but there were some of them they couldn't play the song because I was really, they were difficult. It was just the feel that was in it and the patterns that I used, and it's hard to figure out.
Yeah. Who all was in that band?
Oh gosh, that was my favorite, Christian Robles. He's a guitar player. Pete Hall was a singer. Amazing songwriter. Phil Ritchie played keyboards. We went back and forth with drummers. I think the last drummer's name was Toby Jackson.
Very nice.
A phenom out of Indianapolis, I think. He's from Indianapolis. We had a horn section. Hubert Glover was from Indianapolis as well. Those guys. And we back in. That was probably mid '90s or so. I think we had a sound that was kind of Jamiroquai-ish / Maroon 5. They got popular around here.
Mm-hmm.
And they went on for. I went on and did some different things.
Yeah. Well, what I really love in Danny Man
and Charlie Farrar too, horn section.
Great dudes.
Yeah, love them.
There's something so about someone's inspiration. When you first get that recording equipment, and you can say, if I hear it, I'm gonna play it. Right. That's what I love most about a lot of Prince's work is these moments where you can just feel this mad scientist shutting out from the world. Everything will be done. Like, is it add something like that jazz album where he plays everything but the sax, and it's not his name. I don't remember the name of that, but
Madhouse.
Yeah, Madhouse.
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
it's mind-boggling to think that this is all Prince,
Right.
but you can tell that if he hears it, he's gonna play it. The
Right.
first time I heard piano on a microphone, it's like he just has an ability to channel himself through whatever's in front of him, whether it's going to be great or whether it's just going to be utilitarian. It's just going to get the point across.
Right.
Did you ever fall in love with another one of these instruments the way you use, just for your own personal?
I like piano. And there was a time where I would try to learn piano, but one of the things I heard on the piano was a total opposite of how I played the bass. Everything I heard on the bass was fun, but everything I heard on the piano was classical. So I would write songs and I'd play it back. I'm like, God, how do I play funky stuff? It was just all like major chords, and even with the minor chords, it sounded like stuff I learned in orchestra.
Yeah.
And I don't know what came out like that. And I used to fight and battle it and try to play some funky stuff, but I love the classical piano and just the sound of that.
Yeah.
And so, again, not a virtuoso, but again, I'll play what I hear.
What a cool thing to find out. Like your mind and your inspiration is split amongst these two things. They don't have to be uniform to be you.
Right.
And folks that don't continually let themselves fall into great inspiration and to new vehicles of and doing that, it's like life can get a little stale at times.
Nah, you're right.
You know?
Yeah, you're right.
Like I was talking about with my wife, like watching her get fired up about photography, it's like that right there is the person I married. You know, and you fall in love with watching someone be themselves through a new thing.
Right.
So in your own household right now, like how much do you take the time to be a casual listener?
Do better at that. I have a son, and we share songs back and forth with each other. In his musical taste, I thought mine was diverse, but this guy, he listens to everything. Daddy, I'm going to a country concert. I'm going to a rap concert. You know, he'll put on some Luther, some Marvin, put on some Temptations, put on some old Prince songs. The other day, he sent me a text. Daddy, what was the name of that one Prince song you used to play when we would drive Sunday drives? And it was Love Like Jazz. And I'm like, what was it about that song? And he said, well, you used to play it. It just reminded me of us, and I just liked the way the song was mellow. I'm like, okay. So he'll introduce me to new stuff. I mentor a lot of younger people, and I asked them some stuff. And it might be some Swift stuff. It might be some Chief Keef stuff. And I'm like, all right. But I'm trying my best.
Yeah.
I think the thing that kind of leaves me behind, I'm just old school to the bone. And when it comes to listening to music, I have a difficult time listening to, I can't say a difficult time listening to it. I like music that was created on live instruments. When I saw you perform, it inspired me. And it gave me hope in the next generation and shakers that are going to be out there.
That means a lot, man.
The truth. You know my reaction. That was authentic and genuine.
You scared the shit out of me just being in the room, Mike.
Like,
I was like,
whoa.
oh, I do not know if I'm ready to play for Mike Cobb.
I'm like, who's this? Yeah, you were on it, man. But then you know what? I will say, you kind of opened the door for me to go out and look for more young talent because I enjoy that so much. I have what's called date night on Friday nights, which is just me, myself, and I. Go out and I'll look for new. And that started off with seeing you doing your thing. And I'm like, there are still people out there who love music the way that not that I used to love it, but when I was younger, I'm probably like 106 years older than you. But that energy that you projected, that was really infectious. So thank you for that.
Well, there's more that I want to do in life than to reciprocate the things that have moved me most. And as a young musician, I didn't grow up. My parents showed me records that they loved. Just something that popped out of nowhere and kind of became my world. Like Prince became a strict obsession for me a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And really digging more into what he did and the Isley Brothers and realizing this rich music history that happens in Cincinnati made me want to know who the guys are that that participated in this, that kept it alive, that are still here now. And aside from your playing, my reverence for you is that you look around as someone that's been in situations, whether it's with the time, whether it's with Bootsy. You have something to give in your time and attention that we're not going to get on the internet. We're not anywhere else but in person like this.
I appreciate this.
Well, and as a young player, what was your first day of meeting Bootsy like?
Oh, gosh. The first time I met him, he was doing an autograph signing at Everybody's Records, and I went up with this bass and I asked him to sign it, and the signature wore off of the bass. You can still kind of see it on my strap where he wrote on there. He was like, you don't let me ruin this right here by putting my name on. I said, yes. I said, I got this because of you. And, so that was the first time that I actually met him in person. I did something for the city of Cincinnati at some talent show type thing at City Hall, and he was there. And he'd asked me, like, who I played for. But the biggest connection that I met with him before that was Brother Catfish, who lived around the corner from me. He would just pop up in some of the R&B cover bands I was with. He would pop up, and he asked me, he said, has my brother ever heard you play? And I said, no. He's like, you sound like my brother. I said, that's because I know all this stuff. But it was a huge compliment. And I was like, I felt like I was getting closer and closer and closer to meeting him.
Yeah.
Then, I don't know if you want to hear the story of how I got.
No, I want to hear all of it.
When I played, and this was upon you, somebody's going to hear me play. I don't care if I'm in front of 2 people, or if I'm in front of 102 people, or 1,000 or 1 billion. This might be it. And it was one of those, I'll never forget, I was at work, and I was playing in a band. A couple people were in the band, so we canceled the gig. And our lead, they're basically do it. And one of their singers couldn't do it, so one of our singers said, I'll do it if you play the bass. And to me, I'm like, this when I get my big break. So when did the gig, and they're like, so what do you know? I said, you play. Just let's go. By the end of the first set, tightest R&B guitarist I've played with, Keith Cheatham, he's called Son. He was with Bootsy at the time, and he was playing guitar. And he asked me, he said, has Bootsy ever heard you play? And I said, no. And he said, you sound like a young Bootsy. And I'm like, that's great. Kind of looking at me at the end of the first set, like, how did you know all this stuff? You never know when your big moment's going to come. Keith told me to play with Bootsy, and he's always looking for young musicians and people who never. So I gave him a card, and he called once, and he said, Bootsy's fundraiser for tornado victims in New Richmond, and that's where Patty's from, his wife, Mrs. Collins. And he was going to do a James Brown tribute. He had a guy coming in, other people coming in from all around the country and stuff to help out. And he said, I think you'll be a good fit for this if you know any James Brown songs. And I'm like, do I? Well, you know, that's, And I'll never forget that. I took my son 4 or 5, and he's sitting over to the left of me. I look at him, and he's giving me the thumbs up, and I did my. And all I remember is he's standing behind me when I look right. It was on a Sunday, and on Tuesday. Yeah.
So when you're playing this James stuff, are you doing a lot of the JB's kind of work, or are you doing whole catalog?
It was whole catalog, yeah.
What an awesome way to show homage to his work and to also stretch.
That was great. I can't stand still. I mean, I'm like, when you play, you just get into it, you feel it, and I black out. And I have out-of-body experiences. And that one, to be there, knowing he's behind me, and I knew that he was auditions for bass. And a buddy of mine, you should make that your audition. And I'm like, you're onto something. and I left it all out there. So that's, yeah, playing those songs. Oh boy, yeah.
So that Tuesday, this phone call probably from Bootsy.
Keith, who was his musical director, and he said, "I know you got a job, you know, you got a career, you got a young son at home," and I'm like, "See y'all, adios." Look up, practicing and stuff, and do the arc, and I cried. I mean, I'm a grown man, and I walked in, and I'm like looking around at all this stuff, and he walks in, and I just cried. Back when I'm 7 years old, I can still kind of feel emotion from that, but that's not just what I wanted to do, that's who I wanted to be. And to have the opportunity to be his right hand was, man, you talk about a blessing. Man. So,
Yeah.
And I was like a kid in the candy store. I went up, gave him this big old hug. I didn't want to let go.
Well, Tobot had been on the show before and,
Okay.
and told me about some of his time with Bootsy. And Tobot's a master of a different thing than I even know what to call it.
Yeah.
He's just a master, and I love that guy to death. And all the wisdom that he has passed along is also one of those guys that's like, you have reverence for the legacy that's in this city, and the fact that you're not going to find this anywhere else except for sitting across from that person and listening. When you walk in the room and you're filling in the position for Bootsy, play bass for one of the bass players to ever live, one of the most iconic sounds. It's such a weird feeling of like understanding the mortality that comes along with this.
Right.
That you're not going to be able to play like that every day for the rest of your life, but you can still play.
Right.
So he's not asking you to be him,
Right.
but he's asking you to be a part of him in that kind of a way. And as Toby kind of expressed, there's a really weird thing, getting to know your heroes, but getting to know the difference between Bootsy and William.
Right.
When did that facade kind of start to change from the character to the person?
I'll tell you what. I think I kind of feel as if from day one I met him. And he was really authentic. He was always himself. When he was on during a lot of the shows and stuff, you know, he goes into, you know, get up on stage and we become that person. But personally, I feel as just from day one, the first vibe was I thought I was in front of a superstar. He didn't make me feel that way. That was just me from being 7.5 and seeing how the Name is Bootsy album and this guy standing in front of me. Me being around all his stuff, touching his, I should admit that I touched his, but taking a picture with his
Allegedly.
allegedly. You know, I heard that at some point that I may have possibly allegedly touched his bass. And I did get in trouble for doing that once though. I did. But yeah, he was 1,000,000% authentic.
That's
incredible. It was great. Yeah.
So when you're growing up and you're hearing his material, some material, all these great players, guys that are more effect heavy, did you ever get a rabbit hole tonally, or did you try to recreate between bass and amp?
Bass and amp when I first started.
I always thought you were a directing kind of guy,
Yeah,
but
bass and amp.
so when you step in to play with, telling you bust out plans, let's do something.
Man, I spent probably before we went off on our first tour, I spent the first 2 weeks and I'm not going to give any free advertising here, but you know the places we order from online.
Yeah.
I was in their catalog buying everything because I had to recreate.
Yeah, from scratch.
On a budget.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So trying stuff, I'm putting it down, and he had like maybe 25 pedals or so, and I'm like, yeah, I can't do all that. But what I can do is get that envelope fill sound down. And an old buddy of mine, I shouldn't tell him this because he might see this, but there was one day he comes up and he was like, hey, we're next door neighbors. He comes out of the basement. He's like, hey, I forgot I had this old thing right here. My uncle had it, and he was going to throw it away. Maybe you can use it. And it was like he handed me the holy grail. It was a Neutron octave divider, like authentic from the 70s. And I was like, and I took that. He saw it. He was like, where you get this, Baba? Oh, this is the thing right here. gotta get this going. We gotta get that going. So I had that in my envelope filter, and that created that. I already had the feel. So it was that, but it was a distortion. Oh my gosh! And I never heard distortion before.
Yeah.
And I tried everything, and I settled on some things, and yeah, it took me a while.
It's such a different game to put that between you. It's decoding. It's like computer at that point. So change any of your playing approach?
Oh yeah, yeah. It did.
In what kind of a way?
I feel that when I put effects on, you can kind of hide some of your mistakes. You can take more chances if you have a distortion pedal. When we would be at rehearsals and he would be directing us, I had to be him on stage. So what I do is I'd rather be with you solos. That gave me the opportunity to let loose with the delay and the echo and the multiple versions of the distortion stuff and the heavy and the soft. I could take more chances with a
yeah.
And when I'm I don't have as many chances. If I have an envelope effect on, I can get a little bit funkier because some of the notes are going to be hidden in some of that, the filter.
Yeah.
You play that. You just got to be a little bit more of it.
So when you start into other projects, like you have this monolithic thing going on in your life, but you still have your own kind of studies and whatnot.
Yeah.
Are you to the side, or did anything kind of make its way back into your personal sound?
So it was my dreams to always try to get one of my songs on his album. So I would send him all this stuff. And I would record with a lot of effects. And I got kind of recording with the envelope filter, with the octave and stuff like that. And I did one song where I played this bass solo. It didn't make it on his album. But it's probably the coldest bass solo I've ever played.
Would you send it to me at some point?
Yeah,
I'd love
I'll
to
let
hear
you check it out. Yeah, I'll let you hear it before I leave here.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, dude, and he was like, "Oh, well, I got a guitar player." I'm like, "No, that's me. That's." And he was like, "Oh, okay, Baba."
Yeah.
So I got with those pedals after I learned what they can do. Yeah.
Because I heard he likes to have 2 pedal rigs up there. I heard quite the setup, man.
And I'm like, he's not going to use all. Yes, he uses it all. Yep. And it's cool because he hits. Give away all his secrets, but I'm sure he'd tell you too. But he'll hit a and it's coming from 10 speakers over this way. Then he'll hit another one, it's coming this way. Hit another 2, and they're coming over here. And it was just so cool how he had that set up. That's when it costs money, and I didn't have it like that.
Yeah.
So I had to do it at a budget.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's something really interesting about all of the P-Funk catalog it's not straight funk, you know? It's avant-garde, it's more like these spoken moments, right. These heavily affected moments, you know? It's like Atomic Dog is just someone having such a playful attitude about it. Yeah. And so I'd imagine when you look at his pedal board, like, this is Bootsy Sandbox. I mean, right. He's going to go in here and build you a castle out of nothing, and right he might take it down at the end. You may never understand how this happens. Yeah. What was the first experience playing with Catfish, though?
I never got to play with Catfish.
So just kind of interacted with him?
Yeah. He would always invite me over to his house, but I that. And there was one time he saw me, he was like, "Now listen here, man, I keep inviting you over to my house." And it was as close as like from here to where we are right now. And I said, "Okay, I'll come over." And he said, "I'm having a New Year's Eve party. I want you there." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll come. Yes, sir." And I went, and it was like hip music buddies and just in this basement with the Christmas lights. It was so old school, but it was so cool. You finally made your way over here. So that was the first time I really with him on a personal level.
Yeah.
But and we talked about playing, and then some kind of things changed with him. He didn't have a lot of time that that he used to have, so we never had a chance to jam.
When Bootsy actually starts playing with George and has this whole, line of his own, does Catfish continue to musically together, or where does he kind of go after that?
I had seen him out playing some shows where he would be like a guest guitar player. The first time I saw him play, it was down at a place used to be called Sycamore Garden, down on Sycamore. That was times that I saw him a lot. Once Bootsy went his different ways.
Yeah. I think that was almost a reaction to watching what Bootsy was going through, because I know there was some shock to the level of fame, character that guy had to endure. Coming from that, going from playing with James Brown, being a star, a magnitude of James Brown.
Right.
So do you think part of Catfish having a little bit more privacy is as a reaction to that? Is a personal choice?
That's a good question. And something Bootsy we never talked about. One of the things that Catfish and I did talk about was he always talked about how great Bootsy was. And when it came to as well, that was something where he admired about how he jumped into the business side of it and he did with it. But we never really talked that far into depth about, that relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That intimacy between brothers, especially musically, is like, I didn't grow up with any family that played. My uncle played, and my grandpa on my mom's side that I didn't get to meet played. So there's something that I love about the family member and those things. But I can't imagine what it's like to go stealing your older brother's guitar to play it, now playing along heroes, and then everything that follows that, and how you kind of navigate as a family and as a person. Like the Tales of the Tour Bus show, that was one of the first times I got to see more of those stories, and it's just one of the best series ever, man.
Yeah, I'll tell you, they were very close. I will tell you that. But he loved Catfish, and it was different. I remember when he passed away, these T-shirts made with all these Catfish sayings on them, and it was you wearing it, and but he gave us all T-shirts to celebrate his anniversary and stuff like that. The Tales of the Tour Bus. There is this, what happens on the bus stays on the bus. But we heard a lot of those stories, and then I saw them. I'm like, that's what he told us. That's hilarious. Yeah. That's hilarious.
It's so perfectly done, especially for his character.
Yeah.
So when you join the band, you're going from being Mike Cobb to now being a character alongside Bootsy Collins. Like, like to start hanging out who you were gonna be.
It was hard. It was this image of thought I wanted to be back from when and nobody could have ever told me that I wasn't going to be on a big stage. I could have been 170 years old, showing up to cover band gigs, trying to get on a big stage. And he's going to hear me. And when that time, I didn't know, because I didn't know my role with Bootsy. I never practiced with him. We never sat down. And it was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. They gave me the set. I had the set. There were 2 songs that he came over and showed me. The most difficult one, I just like a politician because I sure say anything that you ask.
No. Trust. I would rather you go down the rabbit hole with exactly what you're saying than worry about that.
I did. It's like, so how are you gonna lower inflation? Right now, I'm really hungry right now. I'm gonna go get some burgers, and that ain't what I asked you. But no. He showed me a couple songs. He showed me what he did on Funk and Teleki, which I played it right. He played it wrong. But Hollywood Squares, I couldn't figure that out. And he told me, he was like, no, go home and figure it out. I said, no, show me. And he showed me. And I got it. But that was unique. But we never played together, so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know who to become, what I wanted to be. I had an image, but I didn't know who he wanted me to be. Once we came back from the first tour, it was, I remember, I'll never forget. I came back and I had to go to work and be regular again. And it was just like, wow, this sucks. Okay, how do I balance this out? And here I am, cover band Mike, and I just went and took pictures with all these people, and everybody thought like, oh my gosh, you're young Bootsy, and you're this, that, and the other. It was hard to balance that out, and it kind of messed with me for a little bit. But Razor, so
one of the best to ever do it, man. The times I got to see him play with Freak, I was like, he's more than bad.
But he was the one that helped me through that. He said, you have to realize, like, your life is going to be different while you're doing this, and you have to embrace that. And I never embraced that part of who I became. My musical talents. I think about it, and it's cool. I see pictures and talking to you about it. It was something that I wasn't able to immediately embrace, but uh, there was a certain look that I wanted to have on stage. I'll tell you this story. This is funny. Um, and I'm like, I want to look like a rock star. And we did a show out of the film, and I'm like, this is what I'm gonna be. And I feathered it to the side. I had this vest on, and behind the stage there were a bunch of mic stands, and I was picking them up, curling them, so my muscles got a little bit big, and had my platinum chain, had my little bracelet, had my sunglasses on up on stage, and I'm like, yeah, this is it, man. I got home from that tour. Bootsy sent this big, long, capital letter, red font email. You don't get up on stage trying to get shows, trying to look cool. What we do, like, we're P-Funk. We make spectacles of ourselves. We look up and we look outlandish. We look silly. You put that costume back on and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, so that's where I embrace the costume with the lights on it. I'm like, okay, that's the Monster Mike. And that's the identity that I had to take.
Yeah.
He couldn't figure out a nickname for me. Going to the Monster Mike, that's another story.
Please. don't hold back.
It was I did practice, and a lot of this comes from my school training where you study, and I'd be listening to what he was saying. I'd take my notes. I didn't say much. I'd listen, and then when I would hit the stage, I was always then the out of body experience when I'm running around, jumping around, 6 years old. Well, you get up on that stage, you sit around here, you don't say a word. Writing stuff down, I'm like, is he there? Is he happy to be? Then you get up on that stage and you turn into a That's it. Monster Mike. And I guess I kind of do have that ego personality thing. But that's when I finally embraced, when he called me Mike, kind of, that's when I embraced that part of me.
Yeah. Bootsy seems to have a gift for stumbling into the right answer.
Yes.
And I feel like once you watch someone do that enough, you start to develop that yourself. Do you feel like in other parts of life you have more personified, characterized who Mike Cobb was in that situation?
Yeah. Without going into too much detail about it, it's always been finding that balance where you turn it on and you turn it off. And it is hard to turn off. In the right situations, it's easy to turn back on. In some situations, it's difficult.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, well, that guy, he's still in here somewhere. You give me a 4 count and a funky drum line. He'll come out.
And I don't think you ever need to worry about it being there or not being there.
Yeah.
It's set and setting. It's
Right.
like the muse. There's a muse in the character and that, and you can't demand anything of it, but it will of you,
Right.
and if you're willing to follow.
Right.
What I'm most inspired by in the world of P-Funk and the way that you, the human being that's been kind enough, let me call in with questions and have these discussions.
Sure.
There's permission to be that character, to love, to develop this thing.
Right.
In the same way that there's permission on the floor, and maybe fool yourself if other people are willing to do the same.
Right.
So when you walk in this microcosm of P-Funk, the first time you get to be in the room with all these people that no one's wearing the costumes yet, but when they do, it's all out.
Right.
There is no limitation in that. There's only authentic and inauthentic. You can toe that line. Start to realize how close to home the character can be is what we all need. Whether it's the best version of yourself as a parent,
Right.
or it's the best version of yourself on stage.
Right.
And I can find myself still being so timid in certain moments with being the character that I am supposed to be standing where I am right now. Do you ever flash between being in the character, continue to have that experience if I don't even need to question.
On stage?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So when I'm in my element, this is one of the things that's important to put out there. When I'm in my element, I know I'm in my element, and inner subconsciousness of the monster that, not like Charles Manson type, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type knows that I'm in. I don't go to a gig knowing that that person is going to come out. It's 1,000,000,000% organic. I'm going to a rehearsal for my show at the end of the month. And I told him, I said, there's you need to watch me. I'm going to say, I don't know what I'm going to do. But you see, I charted this song out where I might do this. So just watch. So it is 1,000,000,000,000% organic when I'm in my element. It's nothing that I have to turn on or turn off, if that directly answers the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just thinking about it, I get chills because there's some shows we've done. We played down in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and that was pretty cool. Down there for a week, and we had a few shows. But I think one of the shows where I felt like I can't even put the feeling into words. Again, crinkly nose, chills down my back. The show in Oakland. And it was this place, it kind of looked like we were Emerald City in the Wizard of everything was gold and green. There's a video somebody sent me on YouTube, and we're doing touch, which was when Bootsy would go out and he would touch the crowd. And he told me, he said, when I'm gone, you got to touch it over, because I became his musical as well. So I'm directing while I'm up there and playing. And I don't remember any of it. But when I watch that, I'm like, wow, that is that out-of-body experience where it's funny. John Blackwell played drums. He used to play for Prince, God rest his soul, and we became really good friends. But he would make fun of me. Like after those, like, what were you doing? I said, I don't remember. And I go back and look at the videos and stuff. I had permission from him to take that stage over. And there were shows where I did it subconsciously. I remember. I do know, man, I miss that. It gives me some ideas too, but I miss that. I miss that.
Yeah. Was there ever a very intentional practice of getting athletic with the bass, of being able to move freely, or did that just kind of happen with time and doing it? Put your body into what you're doing with your instrument. It's hard to hold it down. What position am I in, and why am I in the air right now? And like,
right. I think I can tell you exactly when this started. I just joined the first band that I told you about. I went out and bought my first real bass with a Thunderbolt, 5-string, and we had a place called 1207 Street. And I'm like, well, how am I gonna look? Because I'm used to sitting in my room playing, and I stood up, started doing all these little dances. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of whack. I'll just do whatever I feel. And I just started doing my little side two-step. And I know, and I'd never seen these videos, just like what Bootsy did when he played for that. Head's going, and that's where all that started. I think it goes back to being in my element. I feel it, and I can't stand still. I would probably be a much better bass player if I stood there and just focused on the notes. But I can't stand still because I love it that much. I love performing.
Yeah.
And I can't turn it off when I'm up there. I gotta move.
I can't understand somebody that sits when they play, man. I'm like, that's not what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, when I do R&B gigs now, and it's just, work for hire, just helping friends in their bands and stuff like that. And I have to take a back, and I deliberately, so I don't draw attention from them. Because I'm going to move. I'm going to walk around. I'm going to go up to the mic and say, I'm going to do something. I know me. So if you ever see me sitting down, it's being myself. So that's it. Me moving. When he gave me permission, he said, I like what you do. You take that stage over, and I'm like, oh, it's on now. I'm all over the place.
Is that the first time you're really on the microphone in any band, or you kind of had these pseudo vocalized roles throughout?
Oh no, people put mics in front of me sometimes these because I just say funny stuff. I don't know, but with Boots, I didn't have a mic.
Okay.
I didn't talk. If I was doing direction or whatever, the musicians we played with were phenomenal. Yeah. So there was some things, Boots, you might want to go somewhere, and I want blah 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 whatever. Everybody, I would go up. There's videos I see of myself standing next to somebody, and I know what I said to them. I can read my lips and just silly stuff like. But I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's a show to be controlled in that kind of a way, and sometimes I feel like when you have too many voices on a mic, you forget who's steering the ship.
Right.
And that's a tough thing to walk with bands or solo projects and whatnot.
Right.
One important question for me, when you look at that area of your career and you look at family atmosphere, that kind of makes a but also propels the thing forward. Like, what are your biggest family from being around Patty and Boots and your own son with a career like this?
I'll tell you, probably it was being around him, being around Mrs. Collins, Miss Patty, his daughter, kids, same age as my son. Keith, guitar player, father and daughter. Her fiance at the time was part of that organization. And I'm saying all this to show you how deep it was when it came to a family type. If it wasn't that way, I don't know if I could have survived in it. And I think that's what made me feel really comfortable. They took really good care of me. They took really good care of all of us. And the more I played, the more I rehearsed, the more I was around them, the more I felt like that was where I was supposed to be. I've been in situations business-wise where, you just don't get that vibe. There was so much love. That was the business side of it too, where things had to be a certain way. But everything started off, it came, and I think it was the love that you got from the Collins family. Miss Patty's dad was always there. He'd show up and he would just like to hear us play. And it was just family. It made the world of difference for that experience for me. I don't know how other people could function in another environment when it's just about music and business. But when music comes from love, the business comes from love. It's easier to learn, appreciate, to digest. Oh, this is a business as well. That comes from the love that they projected.
That's beautiful, man. And well put. The way that we currently look at the music industry and all the reasons that's tainted.
Right.
You look at someone that's had a lifetime of a career, yourself, Bootsy, all the guys in this band, someone like Razor, someone like Freakbass, these people that prioritize where their family fits in the music, it has a different weight to it.
Right.
And if you don't take the time for that, like I've told people that when me and my wife really started to plan our future together, it was decided that Cincinnati would be the only place for us.
Okay.
Because there's no reason in letting things go to the next level without that we want to be there for that success. Like I can't imagine my kids not growing up around their grandparents.
Right.
And to see people who have done it and prioritized that and reprioritized it and found better ways to make it happen. It's like, there's only so much time to be had around here.
You are right about that.
Yeah.
And when it's gone, it's gone.
Damn straight.
Yeah.
At this stage in your career, how do you continue to fuel the fire of loving and learning and creating through moments?
I'll tell you what, man. Like I said, probably 700 years older than you.
It's gone up so much every single time.
That's how fast I age. It's life happens, and one thing that's different about me than a lot of other musicians musicians that I've worked with is I'm everything that I do is based off of how I feel. It comes from the inside. So it's difficult uh, as life happens. It's difficult to channel that energy to music for me. And the reason I say that is there are other responsibilities that kind of take place as you get older, and other things you need to kind of be conscious of. I've watched some of my bandmates grow older with nothing. I've watched them grow older, happy with everything. So my goal is kind of just try to find that. But as life happens, I take responsibility for my responsibilities. And I don't talk about this a lot, but my pride and joy is my son. And everything that I, um, so whatever I need to do to see him succeed, that's what I do. And if it's stage, if it's something else, then that's the direction that I take myself into. And I also, this is a promise, and I don't share this with a lot of people, but when I was younger, I made a promise to God, and I'm not really religious. I'm very spiritual. I'm not gonna get all Creflo Dollar or Joel Osteen on, smack in the face with it. But I made a promise, and I said, if my dream is true, I'll do whatever I can to help others' dreams come true. All of my music, every last one of them I'm still really good friends with. I've had that opportunity. So it's easy for me to kind of to keep that promise and to mentor and motivate the innovation of musicians, future movers and shakers. So I push a lot of my energy that way. I don't know what other goals that I would have musically, as far as traveling the world, because that door opens up and it closes. Everybody's not around forever. I knew, circling around doing my politician thing, there were certain times when I was on stage when I knew it was going to last forever. No band is popular forever. But I can tell you, out of all those I played, there was only one where I couldn't give it 100% because I was sick. We were in Germany, and the bus broke down, and we were just all cooped up on the bus a lot, and it was something that was going on. I'm like, I'm not going to get it, but the last show of that tour, I still had it. That was the only thing I couldn't give 1,000%. All of my dreams musically have come true. And at this point in my life, it's important to me to pass it on to the next generation. A lot of people wait too long chasing a dream that they've already woken up from. I'm not that guy. And I look back and I see videos or sitting here talking about it with you. And there are some of the things you've said that I haven't really talked about or I haven't shared with people, these experiences, but it just happened yesterday. I think that answers your question. That's, yeah.
Really well said. To from the dream already.
Yeah.
I think there's a fear for all of us in achieving your dreams. Losing your dream is a really hard thing to look at. But it seems like rather than demanding a certain elevation from life, you've taken a reservation for a level of how you live your life.
Right.
With that same presence and consideration that has taken you from cloud nine to reality while soaking in the same thing. Did coming back from those tours reprioritize what you cared about, or did it affirm the things you cared about?
I think in more things that I cared about. But it also did kind of, it's a good question. Yeah, it affirmed a lot of the things that I cared about, but it also reprioritized some of the things that I needed to put first and foremost. And again, my son was, I think he was 4 when I went on my first tour, 4 or 5. And I wanted to be there. I wanted to watch him grow up. And I had to balance that out. Balance out rehearsals. So I took him with me. There was some that I had my mom and him to, so I could spend with him. Yeah, I had to, that was my. Also, I had a responsibility to boot into the band that I also had to fulfill. So it was a major look back at it. I'm like, how did I do that? And such a great kid now. Just looking at what he's become. How was I able to do that? And it was all through, it was prayer, and it was understanding my priorities.
That's important to hear, I think, first of all.
Yeah.
Your priorities are not something you check the box on. They're something you craft. And I don't think you ever fully yes or no it.
Right.
You just keep trying, half glass full.
Without even going into some big thing, if there are younger people that are listening to this that may have a similar story, people that have responsibilities, others, like kids, kids come first. My son didn't ask to be here. And we're getting too personal about our situation. I had to take my career and kind of put it on a shelf because I was responsible for raising my son, and that was the most important thing to me. And when your dreams come true, like I said before, you hold on to them as long as you can. But sometimes you gotta wake up. I'm like, all right, man, that sure was what's next. I didn't want to be 85, 144, sitting back.
766, whatever.
Yeah, holding my Padula bass, looking in the mirror, trying to come up with new dance. Nah, I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
No.
I find that songs, albums are a better chapter marker in time than dates and years are. That shit gets foggy to me.
Amen.
So, what's the album that the chapter marker music starts at you? And what's the chapter marker where you're at right now?
Oh, boy. Give me that again.
So, if you were going to define when you started playing by an album, what would it be?
The name is.
Okay.
Boom, 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 boom. Oh, yeah.
And if you're going to define the chapter marker with an album where you're at right now,
I don't think the album's been written yet.
does that mean we got more to come from Mike Cobb?
There's more to come.
That's what I'm talking about, baby.
I've done my job with taking care of my kid. He's good. So we got to get this monster back out.
That's what I'm talking about.
Starting on October 26th, Saturday, October 26th, Monster Mike's second annual.
At the Redmore.
At the Redmore, yeah.
An incredible
Funkin'
venue.
Monster Mash, yes.
Yeah. I promise they got enough subs to handle what you do. There's not a lot of places. I walked in there. I was like, now that's some subs, dude.
Yeah.
They are stocked.
Yeah, Dwayne's got me.
Dwayne is a good man.
Yep.
All right. Well, as we wrap this up, is there anything else you want to promote, tell people about, reemphasize?
I will say this. If you have a dream of being a musician or whatever it is you aspire to do, there are a lot of people you'll look